Nisargadatta continued his business while practicing sadhana. He felt increasingly detached from his family, relations, and friends. After initiation, his mind changed radically. He abandoned all pujas, vratas, and idol worship. His guru became his only focus, and he obeyed him without question. Even his brother left, with only his mother remaining, as she understood the transformation in her son. Unfortunately, his wife did not understand him, although he treated her with respect. The teachings of Swami Ramdas, a 17th century Maharashtrian saint, greatly appealed to him. The Dasbodh became the central text of the Siddha Sampradaya, read daily during the month of Shravana. When learned visitors came to his guru, Nisargadatta would quietly take notes. He said his guru's words were his food, not just heard but consumed, his whole body becoming a Shravanyantra, listening instrument, with bhajans being the only offering his guru needed. Once, alone with his guru, Nisargadatta respectfully expressed a spiritual doubt. His guru replied, "You will never have a doubt nor get any doubt hereafter." And a transformation occurred, enabling him to easily follow his guru's words and scriptural teachings. With other disciples, he accompanied his guru to his village, Bhagawadi, for the Jayanti of his guru's guru, Pausaheb Maharaj, for whom his guru had built a samadhi. It is said that Nisargadatta had visions of deities and experienced Divya Prakash, divine light, on many occasions. Surprisingly, upon returning to his hometown, he gave a series of 12 spontaneous discourses, astonishing everyone. His guru, Sri Siddharameshwar Maharaj, attained samadhi in 1936, just before Deepawali. Nisargadatta was deeply saddened, remembering his guru's words, which he had meticulously recorded. He consoled himself by resolving to follow his guru's teachings in thought, word, and deed. Deepawali, a time of great celebration in Bombay, held no joy for Nisargadatta, still grieving his guru's death. He decided to renounce everything and go to the Himalayas. On the first day of Deepawali, he left home without informing anyone, walking towards Pandharpur. He reached the holy site in about 4 days, prostrated before Panduranga, and prayed for guidance. He bought 2 saffron lunges, rudraksha malas, and a rug, giving away his clothes to a poor person. He threw his remaining 1 anna into the Chandrabhaga river. He recounted an experience demonstrating his guru's power. Despite being from a meat-eating family, Nisargadatta was a vegetarian. Once, during spiritual discussions at Bhagawadi, his guru suddenly asked if he ate mutton. When Nisargadatta said no, his guru declared he would make him eat it the next day. Nisargadatta was shocked and pleaded to be excused, fearing he would vomit. His guru reassured him, promising to clean up if necessary. Unable to disobey, Nisargadatta ate the mutton and experienced Brahmananda, divine bliss, throughout the day. His guru later asked him with a smile how he felt. Nisargadatta concluded, "If one type of food can restrict your spiritual progress, it would mean some other type of food can accelerate it." His faith in his guru gave him fearlessness. He walked from place to place, first to Gangapur, then Tirupati, heading towards Rameswaram. He didn't speak the local languages, but this never hindered him from finding food. He was prepared to give up his body if necessary, trusting his guru's promise to care for his disciples. Often, someone disguised as a sadhu would offer him necessities like food, train fare, or bus tickets, which he politely refused. He preferred to walk. When tired, he would board trains without a ticket, yet no ticket inspector ever checked him, even when he walked past them with other passengers being questioned. It seemed as if he was invisible to them. He had a similar experience during curfew, in Bombay due to communal riots. Armed guards patrolled the streets, but they walked past him without questioning him while interrogating others. He found this intriguing, concluding that his guru was protecting him in an unseen way. He was never harassed by the police, allowed to move freely. Once, resting under a tree, he clearly saw his guru's image on his feet, and his loneliness vanished. He then practiced the difficult Tritaka mantra, gazing at the sun with his naked eyes for hours. After some days, the sun began to look like a ball of ice, and he stopped the practice. During his travels, an extraordinary event occurred. One afternoon, tired, hungry, and thirsty, he searched for a habitation but found none. Continuing his walk, he spotted a hut in a field and went towards it. The owner welcomed him, first giving him water, then offering him food, saying he had been waiting for him for days. Confused, Nisargadatta ate, thanked the man, and left. Upon reaching the road and looking back, the hut had vanished, and only fields remained. On his return journey, Nisargadatta met a fellow disciple at Sholapur who gave him a saffron lungi, a photograph of Siddharameshwar Maharaj, a copy of the dasbod, and some incense sticks. After walking some distance, Nisargadatta sat under a tree, read the dasbod, and began singing bhajans before his guru's picture. He had grown long hair and a beard, resembling a sannyasi. Upon reaching Bombay, he initially chose not to return home roaming the Biography forest. There, he met a college lecturer seeking a guru to teach him spiritual matters. The lecturer stayed with Nisargadatta for several days, asking questions and clearing his doubts. He became a follower, even offering to carry Nisargadatta's bag, which Nisargadatta refused. The lecturer was later offered a college principalship in Bombay, left Nisargadatta, and never contacted him again. His whereabouts remained unknown. While in Borivali, Nisargadatta felt a strong desire to settle in the Himalayas. He travelled to Delhi via Mathura and Vrindavan. In Delhi, he unexpectedly met another fellow disciple who eagerly listened to his story. After hearing it, the disciple praised Nisargadatta's courage and resolve, but hesitantly advised him against going to the Himalayas, saying it contradicted his guru's advice and the teachings in the dasbod. Nisargadatta acknowledged this, but stated his unwillingness to return to family life after renouncing everything. However, he reflected on the advice and concluded that returning home wouldn't compromise his renunciation, which was based on inner discernment, viveka, not physical abandonment. An inner voice urged him to return, and he decided to go home and see his family. His family was happy to see him but shocked by his appearance. Matted hair, beard, saffron cloth and beads. He removed these and threw them into the sea, rejoining his family. His prosperous businesses were gone, only the original beedi shop remained. The financial loss didn't bother him, as he had become spiritually rich. He resumed business in the shop, but his conversations now focused solely on spiritual matters. After about a year, the wandering and intense spiritual practice had weakened him physically, though he remained cheerful. He resisted medical attention until his family insisted. A doctor diagnosed him with tuberculosis. Nisargadatta smiled, refused medication, and prayed intensely to his guru. After a few days of intense practice, he began Indian exercises called Dand Paithaka. Surprisingly, his health improved dramatically, and within 2 years, he was as strong as a wrestler, astonishing everyone. This was in 1940. Nisargadatta attended bhajans organized by fellow disciples, with discussions on spiritual topics. During this time, he became close to a fellow disciple named Bainath. Before meeting Siddharameshwar Maharaj, Bainath had regularly prayed at a Hanuman temple. One day, Hanuman appeared to him during meditation and instructed him to seek out Siddharameshwar Maharaj. Bainath had many doubts clarified by him. Due to limited time for discussions, they would often go to Girgan Beach. During the rainy season, they sat on the closed shop's planks, continuing their discussions until 2 a.m., then returning home for night bhajans and arthi, which lasted about an hour. This practice continued for nearly 2.5 decades until 1966. Between 1942 and 1948, Nisargadatta faced tragedy, losing his daughter, wife, and mother. His daughter was of marriageable age. He concealed his sorrow, telling people that the Absolute, Paramatma, had married her. His wife, though religious, was unhappy with his lifestyle. Shortly before her death, she expressed her weariness of life and desire to die. After his attempts to console her failed, he finally said, "If that is your wish, let it be," and she passed away a few days later. Sorrow didn't affect him outwardly, and his relatives and disciples noticed a significant change in him. When relatives came to offer condolences, Sri Kolhapur, a disciple of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, also arrived. Forgetting the somber occasion, Nisargadatta engaged him in spiritual discussions. After their conversation, he informed Kolhapur of his wife's death and invited him to the funeral, surprising him. While relatives arrived to offer condolences, Nisargadatta sang bhajans in the loft, unconcerned with the funeral arrangements. His soul had truly blossomed. By this time, he had lost his businesses and some property in Konkan. When a friend tried to console him over his losses, he smiled and said, like a true sage, "One must be lucky to be the recipient of such calamities and welcome more such calamities." Maharaj did not observe caste distinctions. He even arranged inter-caste marriages for his son and daughter, despite initial family protests. His stance, proclaiming only one caste, humanity, influenced many of his followers. While selling pan and beedis, he was so detached that he often didn't count the money correctly, sometimes giving more change than due. The customers, however, respectfully returned the correct amount. He continued the beedi business, which had sustained his family for over 5 decades, more as a family tradition, kulachara, than a commercial venture. He often gave beedis away for free to poor people. His reputation as a sage spread beyond Khetwadi, attracting many visitors, including foreigners. Maharaj forbade discussions about family problems or psychic powers, siddhis. One listener began taking notes of his talks, which were later compiled into a Marathi book sold locally. As his following grew, the loft where he practiced became a mezzanine floor, housing a large picture of Siddharameshwar Maharaj. This space became known as Nisargadatta Ashram. Almost daily, after the arthi, bhajan, and puja, he gave an hour-long discourse. Afterwards, he would walk to Gurgaon seashore with his close disciples, like Bainath, discussing religious practices, returning home around 11 p.m. He often wouldn't eat, requiring coaxing from his daughter. He ate quickly and without apparent enjoyment, yet always praised his daughter's cooking. The Guru's tradition involved observing saptaha, pilgrimages, at various times and places known as Gurusthan, including Inchagiri, Baswan Bagawadi, Siddhagiri in Kolhapur district, and Nimpal in Karnataka. Siddhagiri was the place of the Saint Khetwadi Siddhareshwar Maharaj, and Nimpal was known for Gurudev Ranadi's ashram. Every year, Nisargadatta and his fellow disciples went on Saptaha to one of these places. The daily program during Saptaha mirrored that of Nisargadatta Ashram, with the addition of reading and explaining the Dasbod. Even during Saptaha, Nisargadatta never missed the daily bhajans, even when he had a high fever. He carried photographs of Siddharameshwar Maharaj and Pausaheb Maharaj, along with puja items like incense. Maharaj was a chain smoker, much to his devotees' concern. When questioned, he said, "For others, it contains tobacco. For me, it is a good fermentation." As the number of disciples grew, so did the activities. Some disciples persistently requested Maharaj to visit their homes. He obliged until 1974. He was gradually becoming a guru himself, which some fellow disciples disapproved of, questioning his authority from Siddharameshwar Maharaj to initiate disciples. They even asked him to stop, more out of jealousy than genuine concern. Nisargadatta explained that he couldn't disobey his guru's mandate to initiate. He also retorted that if they believed a picture of Siddharameshwar Maharaj was the source of his authority, they were welcome to take it and throw it into the sea. Thereafter, he had initiates stand before a large mirror and prostrate before it before initiation. Nisargadatta had kept extensive notes of his guru's talks, later publishing 2 books from them, which also drew disapproval from some fellow disciples. His disciples wanted to celebrate his birthday, but he agreed only on the condition that it be simple and without extravagance, consisting of bhajans and discourses, to which he invited all his fellow disciples in Bombay. He would garland them, offer them sweets, and prostrate before them. He never accepted gifts of any kind from his disciples. Only after much persuasion would he accept a dhoti, kurta, khadar cap, and chapals on his birthday. Some disciples, however, would leave cloth and other items in the ashram as tokens of their love. Nisargadatta would then distribute these items to his poor disciples as prasad. Maurice Friedman, a Polish engineer and later the author of the renowned book I Am That, visited Nisargadatta Maharaj after a challenging search. Friedman was a highly evolved spiritual seeker who had previously visited Ramana Maharishi's ashram, followed Mahatma Gandhi, and attended J. Krishnamurti's meetings. After much wandering, he finally arrived at Nisargadatta Maharaj's ashram around 1965. He became deeply attached to Maharaj, staying in Bombay and visiting him frequently. Maharaj clarified many of his doubts, and Friedman began taping the discussions, transcribing them, and with Maharaj's approval, compiled the monumental I Am That, which became a global bestseller. It is thanks to Maurice Friedman that Maharaj and his teachings were presented with such precision. Remarkably, Friedman learned both Hindi and Marathi to better understand Maharaj's message. On Maharaj's birthday, a devotee requested permission to publish a souvenir for publicity. Maharaj sharply rebuked him, stating he was simply pointing out the obvious truth and saw no need for publicity. He indicated the pictures of his guru and others, saying he would rather pay someone to remove and drown them if they were responsible for bringing him attention. Though Maharaj wasn't known for performing or even discussing miracles, many were reported. One such instance involved Maharaj's niece, who was near death. Doctors had given up hope, and her family was preparing for her funeral. Maharaj, who usually visited their house, happened to be there. Hearing of her condition, he entered the room and loudly said, "What is this? Why are you sleeping at this hour? Get up! Your Mama Maharaj has come after a long time. Will you not give him a cup of tea?" To everyone's astonishment, she got up and made tea for him. Only then did the relatives explain her serious condition and how Maharaj had seemingly saved her life. Once, walking in Pune with disciples, Maharaj stopped before a bank and asked a young disciple if he wanted to work there. The disciple, desperately needing a job, was overjoyed and humbly touched Maharaj's feet. Maharaj and the others continued walking, and the disciple didn't expect anything to come of it. However, a month later, he received a letter offering him a clerical position at the bank. A 20-year-old girl with tuberculosis, scheduled for an operation in Bombay, went to Maharaj for darshan with her father. Unexpectedly, Maharaj told her, "Go immediately to Nasik. No operation is necessary. If your father has fixed it, have it cancelled." Nasik is a significant pilgrimage site. Maharaj clearly had a reason for sending her there, and she was indeed cured. Despite these and other experiences, Maharaj advised against publicizing miracles. He cryptically said, "Don't come here as you would go to a shop or a bazaar. Do as I tell you. Give yourself up completely to the Guru inside, and your problems will disappear." Maharaj, a simple, unassuming person with vast knowledge, lived in a humble dwelling in Khetwadi. His appearance belied his spiritual power. He had bright, powerful eyes, reminiscent of Bhagavan Ramana. He spoke in simple Marathi, though he knew English well. He shunned publicity, formed no organizations, and accepted no gifts. He worked alone and refused to be treated as a guru. As a review in the Hindu noted, with an impish glint in his eyes and a wave of his hand, he would say, "When I go about, I am just an old man out for a walk, so nobody bothers me, and I can go as I pleased." Maharaj pointed out that the purpose of life is to be free from suffering, which stems from identification with the body-mind complex. He said, "Only the self is, it is impersonal, pure awareness beyond time and space. Unattached to anything, it is ineffable bliss. Desire is the villain of the piece. We do not live in the intense present, the only reality, because we are fueled by memories of the past and dreams of the future. He advised abiding in the simple I am and giving up thinking I am this or I am that. Love and do what you will, and when all the false self-identifications are thrown away, what remains is all-embracing love. You are no longer separate from the world. You are not in the world, but the world is in you. His sayings were invaluable. Liberation is never of the person. It is always from the person. Discard every self-seeking motive. Do not search, for truth will find you. Such were the teachings of Nisargadatta Maharaj, who lived in a crowded Bombay lane, in a humble home, dressed like an ordinary man. He was difficult to distinguish in a crowd. He loved his grandchildren, who called him Bappa, God, and they would scramble for a place on his lap, sometimes playfully interrupting his discussions. On birthdays and festivals, he faithfully visited his guru's samadhi at the Banganga burial ground. He could often be seen traveling by bus. He never forgot to vote in elections, patiently waiting in queues, sometimes even in the hot sun. His simplicity defied analysis. When he needed a haircut, he would quietly go to a local salon. He would take his grandchildren to buy them lassi and teach them how to drink it. He deeply loved some of his disciples and would walk with them to Chowpatty seashore even in heavy rain, discussing the path to self-realization. Unmindful of his stature as a sage, he would sit on the benches in the rain, holding an umbrella and enjoying his beedies, discussing spiritual matters until late at night. Sometimes, at his disciples' request, he would stop at a nearby Irani cafe for tea and biscuits. Despite having access to cars, he steadfastly refused such comforts, preferring to walk along in communion with the self. It should be remembered that he was over 80 and not in good health, with cancer developing. Yet he refused medical treatment. His disciples struggled to change his firm resolve. Despite the untreated cancer, he remained cheerful and maintained his routine, selling beedis, morning bhajans, and meditation with disciples, showing no signs of deteriorating health. His simple abode, especially the loft, was remarkably peaceful despite the street noise. He seemed to exist outside of time. Maharaj was not a learned man, but he spoke in simple Marathi without quoting scriptures. He opposed the building of an ashram, though his disciples desired it. He was accessible to everyone, rich or poor, who showed genuine interest in his teachings. Doctors brought by disciples were baffled, as Maharaj showed no signs of suffering or pain, especially in his throat. He explained this by saying, "All this happens in consciousness. I do not feel any pain." However, as his final days approached, he showed increasing weakness, though his face remained radiant and his eyes continued to sparkle. His disciples anxiously stayed near his bed, but he would tell them to return later. Knowing they likely wouldn't see him again, they were reluctant to leave. With a gesture, he asked them to go, saying he was feeling sleepy. He told them not to worry, that he wasn't going anywhere and would be with them. The disciples reluctantly went home, knowing a dream was about to end. Edith Powell, in her book The Nectar of the Lord's Feet, states that Nisargadatta Maharaj's final message was to return to what one was before birth, before identifying with a particular body. He advised remaining in that eternity of wholeness, even if the body is broken, possessions are lost, or the world is in flames. As Maharaj's serious illness became known, a sense of gloom pervaded the loft. He was suffering from throat cancer, the same disease that afflicted Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramana Maharshi also suffered from cancer. Seeing the devotees' sadness, Maharaj jokingly said, "There is no difference at all between life and death. Were you not dead before you were born? What is darkness other than the absence of light? What is death other than the absence of life?" To alleviate their fear, he explained that the fear of death comes from the desire to live and perpetuate one's identity with the elusive I. Those who know reality also know the falsity of life and death. Knowing Maharaj's end was near, some disciples, permitted into the loft, were eager to record his last words. The finality of death cast a shadow. As Sri Balsakar put it, dark clouds hung over the horizon, and the rumbling of thunder foretold the coming storm. The disciples were in a difficult position, knowing their master's body was failing, but not wanting to show their fear, lest he feel his teachings had been in vain. They had heard him say that death was an ecstasy, that only the body is subject to birth and death, not the imperishable Atma, self. While they intellectually accepted his passing, emotionally, it was difficult. His last talks, though brief, were full of wisdom, like a candle burning brightly before it goes out. Balsakar described it as a great beyond speaking and not a frail old man in the clutches of death. Sri Mulapatan, who attended to Maharaj during his final days, noted that Maharaj's ability to speak with his usual energy diminished. As talking drained him, Mulapatan humbly requested him to limit his talks to half an hour. Visitors, understanding his condition, tried to quickly get their questions answered, encouraging each other, saying, "Get your difficulties cleared up. There is so little time left now." The poor beedi customers were deeply saddened by Maharaj's illness. They were denied entry to the apartment, unable even to get a last glimpse of him. Rumors spread that he was dying and would be seen no more. They struggled to accept the finality of death and the impermanence of the body. They had grown attached to Maharaj through their daily interactions at the shop and his brief morning talks. Upon learning of their desire to see him, Maharaj, with compassion, allowed them to enter the loft in small groups. He reassured them that he wasn't going anywhere, that he would be with them and soon be selling them beedis again. His love for them became legendary. One day, with a smaller group of visitors, Maharaj spoke about suffering. When asked why one must suffer, he closed his eyes briefly and softly answered, despite his weakness and the doctor's diagnosis of cancer. He was not perturbed. The very mention of cancer usually shocks a patient, but Maharaj asserted that his reaction was different. He asked, "Who is ill?" He added that whatever is born must die, and only consciousness survives. He enigmatically said that his relative absence will be his absolute presence, and that the moment of death will be the moment of the highest ecstasy. During his last days, with visitors restricted to family and close friends, Maharaj continued to speak softly, reclining with his eyes closed. Sri Mulapatan, Sri Balsakar, and a few family members were constantly in attendance. Maharaj suddenly opened his eyes and spoke admonishingly, "You have been coming here of your own volition to see another individual, a guru, who you expect will give you liberation from bondage. Do you not see how ridiculous all this is? Your coming here day after day only shows that you are not prepared to accept my word, that there is no such thing as an individual." He added, "Whatever I say is being tape recorded by some people, and others take down their own notes. For what purpose?" On another occasion, he said, "People have been coming to me wanting knowledge. What is this knowledge that you want? This knowledge about which you take down notes? What use will be made of those notes? Have you given any thought to this aspect of the matter?" He spoke on other topics that day, but was visibly exhausted. Lying back down and with a wave of his hand, dismissed them, adding with humor that he could now only give out capsules of knowledge. At 10 a.m. on September 8, 1981, the day of his Mahasamadhi, Maharaj appeared considerably better than the previous day. His face had better color and his eyes were bright. Doctors observed heavy chest congestion and administered oxygen. Mullah Payton, Balsakar, and relatives were present. They left briefly, and Maharaj had some milk and tea, feeling more comfortable. When Mullah Payton returned in the afternoon, Maharaj's condition had worsened. He called Balsakar, who rushed to the residence. They found Maharaj on oxygen, his eyes open but with a blank expression, indicating a no-mind state. His breathing was labored, and his end seemed imminent. These moments, as the disciples and family watched his heavy breathing, were the saddest of their lives. He passed away at 7:32 p.m., transitioning from the relative to the absolute with great ease and peace. The funeral took place the next day, September 9th, 1981. Maharaj's body was placed in a reclining position and taken to the Banganga cremation ground in a procession of thousands. The crowd grew larger upon reaching the cremation ground at 2:45 p.m. Maharaj's son lit the pyre after a simple but moving ceremony that began with bhajans before his guru's nearby shrine. The flames consumed Maharaj's body, merging his physical form with the elements from which it was made.
Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, 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 Jai Jai Guru. Ah, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru. Ah, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Jai Jai. Raja Siddharameshwar Maharaj ki Raja Maharaj ki Raja